This is Bring Your Worth TV. My name is Damon Brown. I'm an entrepreneurial coach. If you're a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur, some of y'all that are watching this are coaching with me right now or have coached with me in the past. I welcome y'all. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching, you can go to damonbrown.net. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. Bring Your Worth.tv. Been coming to you for just over 4 years. This is episode 407, here to help you level up. I'm live most, if not all, Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free over at YouTube, the main station, over at BringYourWorth.tv, or if you're watching on Twitch, or if you're watching on Spotify, or if you're following me on LinkedIn. So we're multinational, multinational today. If you watched last week's episode, you understand why I always take that technique. I'll go and throw the link to last week's episode on the TikTok drama below. You can also get my latest book, the complete Bring Your Worth collection. It has 7 books in it, including the best-selling Bites Entrepreneur, Bring Your Worth, which is actually what's named after my company, of course, this show, as well as my personal favorite, Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. You can actually listen to it for free right here at BringYourWorth.tv at the link below, or you can grab it at your favorite retailer. Bookstore, you can get directly from me, get a signed copy. Some of y'all came through for that last week over at damonbrown.net. Of course, you can catch me on Twitch and on Spotify. I love this multinational, multi-streaming, multi-platform vibe that we have going on. I love it, love it, love it. You guys might have caught me talking about this if you subscribe to my newsletter at joindamon.me. It's free. Feel free to subscribe with the links below. But the upcoming um, Institute for Independent Journalists organization conference is coming up. I'm hyped about it. It's founded by Catherine X. Lewis. Love your work over there. It's a killer conference when it comes to independent journalists. That also means freelancers. I've been an independent journalist for umpteen years. That throat clear was on purpose. It wasn't just my allergies. And I love the work they're doing over there. If you go right now, and I do mean right now, listen, the conference, as of us talking right now, the conference is in 5 weeks. Today is January 22nd. In 5 weeks, this conference is happening. It's virtual, and I believe they do have some physical stuff going on too. The early bird, I just heard from a bird. A bird told me that the early bird is ending, I believe, this week, if not today. Get on it if you're gonna go. Got some powerhouses speaking over there. I won't even go through the list; it'll take too long. But fantastic. Be sure and check it out. Tell them Damon sent you. You can use my discount code right there. In case you missed it last week, as I talked about 3 business strategies to survive the TikTok ban. If you're around for for the chaos over the past week, TikTok did go offline and then came back online a few hours later, saying they had an extension based on commitments that were made by the US government. It sounds weird and a little bit confusing. Personally, I'm not putting all my content onto one platform, hence you being able to watch Bring Your Worth.tv on YouTube, on Spotify, on Twitch, on Twitter if you do Twitter. I don't rock with Twitter anymore. I know some people have put it on Facebook Meta. Knock it out. Go for it. And of course, my people over at LinkedIn, which showed some live programming earlier today. Good to connect with some of y'all that I connected with this morning. But listen, this is not the era, nor has it ever been the era to just say, I'm just on TikTok. No. And hopefully it serves as a wake up call. I've been ringing this alarm for a long time. Let's just put it like that. That's one of the reasons why I am platform agnostic. Be sure and check out last week's episode. It talks about that. You also might see some clips too and specific excerpts from the program. Feel free to watch those. The live show is about an hour long, and then there's excerpts that I put up as far as shorts, as well as little clips that I put up that I emphasize some particular things. But if you've been watching the show for the past 400 episodes, you can't just rely on one platform. I will get off my soapbox. I already talked to y'all in the comments with the last thing, and we all have experienced, anyone that's involved in social media experience that drama. And yeah, I wouldn't put my hopes in in one particular platform. But today, quick must-read books to devour in minutes. I love books. I've done 27 of them. The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection is my 27th book. I love writing books. I'm a ghostwriter now, so I write for some of the folks that you might know behind the scenes. It is a fantastic journey that I've been on, and sometimes you just want a little book. Like, m- like my best stuff here. This is a big book. I'm trying to treat y'all, but sometimes you don't want a big book, and sometimes, as I talk about in my newsletter, I'll give a link in a moment. And my today's newsletter comes out every Wednesday. Is that sometimes you don't have the time or the energy or the resources for that. As I talk about in Build From Now, one of the books in the collection, my last independent book, you don't always have the resources that are plenty. You might have a bunch of energy, but you might not have the time. You might have a lot of time, but you might not have energy, et cetera, et cetera. You might not have the focus, et cetera. What I want to do today is highlight some of my favorite short books that you can read literally within an hour. Within an hour. If you're of a high school or higher reading level, you can knock these out in an hour. Some of these books are 45 minutes long. Don't take me my word for it. Some of them I know the audiobook version of them, and they're longer than the program going, or I'm sorry, shorter than the program that you're about to watch right now. So we're gonna go and get into it. I'm also going to emphasize these three or four books are focused on emotional intelligence and or entrepreneurship, which is, why we're here, right? So that's kind of the vibe. Today's newsletter was talking about when all or nothing doesn't work. I have a free newsletter at joindamon.me and click the link right there and check it out. There's some funny memes in there, but it's also talking about the very serious subject of sometimes we end up putting our own personal growth to the side because we're too busy adulting. Where there could be little kids. I have two kids, one in elementary school, one that just started middle school. It could be adults or other dependents like our parents or aunts, someone who's going through challenges that are leaning on us. It could be just paying the bills, trying to get to the day. There's no shame of being exhausted when you don't have kids or independent. Being an adult, it can be really hard. And so, how do we continue to grow, as I say in the newsletter, continue to spread our branches while also keeping grounded in our roots? How do we do both? How do we take care of our family and continue to do entrepreneurship? How do we take care of our parents or little kids and still show up for the rest of the world? How do we have some type of social life and still continue to do amazing work? That's really the question that it comes down to. Hopefully, with the types of books that are here, you can grab them on your commute. You can listen to them while you're driving. Some of the audiobooks I've listened to with my kids. They're used to daddy putting on some intellectually stimulating stuff while we're driving to school. And sometimes that's what you can squeeze in. So today we're going to focus on the things you can squeeze in. It's just because things are busy, that's no excuse not to grow. So here are my favorite books that you can jump onto with that. First book is The Pocket, Pema Children, one of my favorite books. When I say pocket, I mean pocket. I mean, I can put it in here. You won't know that I had something in my pocket. 20 jokes can come from that. But really tiny. You might have saw it in the thumbnail. It is tiny. Like my hands aren't huge or anything. It fits literally just outside of my palm. Fantastic book. Pema Chodron is actually a Buddhist monk, specifically Tibetan Buddhism. And she was born here in America. I think she was over in New Mexico, not too far from where I'm based here in Las Vegas. And she had an epiphany one day. Often epiphanies uh, are follow some type of personal trauma. And her case was not an exception. I'll let her tell it. I will not retell her story. And in that, and she discovered Buddhism probably in her, I'd say mid to late 20s. Now I'm guessing, is well into her 80s, something like that, maybe even her 90s. But she's up there now. And so she has 60, 70 years of wisdom. And it's all this little pocket thing. It is beautiful. I'm going to do some Russian roulette and do some random stuff here. Hmm. 49. The daring of having no enemies. Whether it's ourselves, our lovers, bosses, children, a local Scrooge, or the political situation, it's more daring and real not to shut anyone out of our hearts and not to make the other into an enemy. If we begin to live like this, we'll find that we actually can't make things completely right or completely wrong anymore. because things are a lot more slippery and playful than that. Everything is ambiguous. Everything is always shifting and changing. And there are as many different takes on any given situation as there are people involved. Trying to find absolute rights and wrongs is a trick we play on ourselves to feel secure and comfortable. Now, there are certain, I believe, ethical rights and wrongs, but when it comes to, and moral, if you want to use that term, but when it comes to how people decide to live their lives, that's where it gets slippery. That's not the right thing to do. Well, it's not your life. This gets even more complicated when, again, I'm a parent twice over. So when you have kids, when you have older relatives, or even not even older, other people that are adults that are dependent on you, and you have to make decisions for them. What is right and what is wrong? We just went through a really intense, and are still going through a really intense political time here in America. A lot of y'all in the Western world are also going through intense times in your respective countries. As we go through these things, what we often forget is that we still need to talk to the people that we have beef or issues with. Like, you can get into a big argument with your spouse, a big argument with your kids, a big argument with your boss, or even the people that look up to you or that you supervise. And you might win that argument, and then you still need to see them the next day at breakfast or at the proverbial water cooler. You still need to live with everybody else. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we've had, particularly here in America over the past 10 years, is that there's things that are said, decisions that are made that make us think that we're in two different places. But at the end of the day, we're at the same place. If you're in America, you're an American. If you're in Britain, then you're part of the UK, et cetera, et cetera. If you're part of a family, you're always part of a family. And if you're in a work environment and you treat someone like crap and they come the next day, you might need something from them. That's kind of the nature of working together. This is really good. As you can tell, I just did the random pull here, as we used to say. I just did a random pull, and it was amazing insight. You saw that took me 30 seconds, maybe a minute to read, and I was really taking my time. This book is fantastic for reflection. I've been, I'm going to say this. I've been to some tense family gatherings and had this in pocket, and then had to take some bathroom breaks to remember who the hell I was. So I would highly recommend you grab the book, even as just look at it as a, like a a fire extinguisher thing. You know what I mean? The thing that you pull, I think it's called, you break the glass in case of fire. That kind of thing. Boom, pull it in case. Uh, that that's a line right there. As we say in hip hop, that's a bar. Do you want to be right, or do you want to fix this? I would go even further. That, and do you want to be right, or do you want to leave other people whole? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to build community, or are you trying to prove that you're right all along? You know, and it's okay if you want to be right. I, I I'm going on episode 410 of this show just so I can give my opinion and hear from you. So I'm not one to be humble as far as my particular perspective. I have no problem giving my POV. That said, that doesn't mean that I'm right all the time. Those are really big distinctions. Thanks for the comment. That was fantastic. So, when is the last time you struggled with being right or doing something that was better for the whole? I'd love to hear that in the comments. Jump in there. Let me know what's going on. Hopefully, this tiny book will be of use to you. I highly recommend it. I think it's like, yeah, it's less than $10. Just get it. Just stop playing around. All the links are below. Before I forget, I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV, coming to you live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe below on Twitch as is on the screen, as well as on Spotify, as well as on YouTube, as well as following me on LinkedIn, wherever you get your news. Thank you for coming through. Fantastic book. Simple question. When's the last time that you felt like that you were absolutely right and then you realize that might not actually make sense? And in fact, perhaps there was another point of view you didn't understand. I'm in that situation all the time again. I'm a parent, I have family. That's kind of how it works. My next favorite book is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Stephen, I hope you're doing wonderful. I love your work. The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. I'm reading it slow because I'm reading it backwards. Another tiny book, not as tiny as Fema. Shout out to Fema, but it is a tiny book, and you can tell it's well worn. So I'm walking the walk here. I'm not just giving you random information. Oh man, War of That Art is a fantastic book. Oh, before I get into that, I totally forgot. If you want to go deeper, till I need more coffee today. If you want to go deeper with Pema Children's work, definitely check out How to Get Centered Today. It's a live show I did in the wee years of 2022. If you guys remember 2022. So it's about 2 or 3 years ago. Really appreciate this episode. It's about being grounded in times of chaos. Hey, this is live recorded in 2025. You go back to this recording in 2022, the stuff that Pema does and anything that will get you centered, it's always useful. People say we're unprecedented times. Gotta know your history. It's a good way to go have a flashback and give some type of grounding to that. If you need more grounding, jump in the comments. Let me know how you're grounding yourself in this amazing, quote unquote, unprecedented time. All right, my man, Stephen Pressfield, one of my favorite little books ever. It is fantastic when it comes to understanding your craft and showing up. It's hard to give this book justice, even though it's 130 pages. It's tiny, as you can tell, it's well worn. I love this book. I love you, Steve. Hope you're doing wonderful. It is basically about this. When it comes to the work that we're supposed to be doing in our life, our proverbial hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talked about way back in the day. When it comes to that journey, it's natural to be afraid. That fear, he calls it, Stephen Pressfield calls the resistance, capital T, capital R, resistance. In that resistance, we show up in a certain way. We're ready to put pen to pad, to start using a typewriter if you're old school like me, to start working on the manuscript, to ask that person on a date and do something amazing and creative with them. Who knows? Whatever that spark is that that hero's journey you're being called to do. And the resistance says, how about you do a little bit more studying? How about you go back to school and get that PhD? Because what you're saying doesn't quite fit. How about you sit down just a little bit longer? Because if you say this to this person, you're going to look like a fool. What makes you think that what you have to say matters any more than any other fool? If that's the case, then why don't you just keep your mouth shut? That is the resistance. I hear that sometimes, a lot less than I used to, but I hear that sometimes. You probably know those voices too. And it could literally be someone else, but often, as Steve talks about, it's in your head. Lovely passages in here. And it's a book that, listen, I can go ahead and read it. And I could have read it when I first got it. I could have read it in the afternoon. Instead, I took my time on it because I know it was so freaking good, so ridiculously good. Fantastic, fantastic book. Here's one of my favorite passages. A professional accepts no excuses. The amateur, underestimating resistance cunning, permits the flu to keep him from his chapters. He believes the serpent's voice in his head that says mailing off that manuscript is more important than doing the day's work. The professional has learned better. He respects resistance. He knows if he caves in today, no matter how plausible the pretext, he'll be twice as likely to cave in tomorrow. The professional knows that resistance is like a telemarketer. No offense to my telemarketers. If you so much as say hello, you're finished. The pro doesn't even pick up the phone. He stays at work. It's about showing up for your work. That's just one page, again, similar to Pema Chodron's work. Shout out to her. It took me 30 seconds to a minute to read that passage. It's chocked with those. This is really the book that you want to grab if you feel stuck. Not stuck in the way of, I'm not sure what to do next. Stuck in the way of, I know what I need to do next. I know whom I want to serve or how I want to show up. I'm just not doing it. This goes under those layers. I discovered this book early in my coaching career. It really helped inform the coaching that I do. Excuse me. Because a lot of y'all that I work with are, again, the non-traditional entrepreneurs, the side hustlers, the solopreneurs. And for me, that falls into the creativity box. We're making something out of nothing, as I talk about in the book, Bring Your Worth. Our job is to make something out of nothing, whether it's an app that's become a daily habit for us today that someone created from scratch. It's a book that literally was in someone's brain, 2, 3 decades ago, and now it's informing myself and hopefully informing you after you grab the book. Now that you know about it, it's showing up every day, and perhaps some people that you're kin with, as kin as far as having a similar view, understanding your vision, and nobody else in the world does. But that friction in itself makes it worthwhile to have that vision. What's that one thing that only you were meant to do? From my second app, Cuddler, which became the number one app in the world back in 2014, and I'm getting acquired in 2015, to me doing this show with y'all. That's the reason why I keep showing up. I am uniquely made, designed, just like you are, to do certain things in this life. Me having this show is one of those things. Me doing one of my 27 books is one of those things. Me coaching you is one of those things. Because those unique life experiences brought me here to you at this very moment. This is a great reminder of that. And this is his most famous book. This is probably my favorite book of his, but he has some other bangers that are fantastic that are over on my shelf. Talk about prolific. Grab one. I'd start with this one though. It's a great place to start. And I think it's so good. My experience says breakthroughs happen while going through the resistance, not over, under, or around. That's it. Thank you. That's exactly it. And so that ends up being the friction of it. As Ryan Halliday says, the obstacle is the way. Like there's patterns here, even as far as Pema children. you know, these come to almost like a creative spiritual practice where the friction is where we need to heal. And things that are not revealed cannot be healed, as someone once said. So it really has to do with your fear of showing up as yourself, perhaps because you're afraid you'll be rejected. That's real. And again, the complete Bring Your Worth is my 27th book. So, you know, I know that journey. So hats off to you, salute to you. And if you're watching this show, I'm glad you're in the arena. If you're deep digging Steve's work, again, the links are all below. A good companion to this to watch is if you want consistency, watch this now. It's a live show I did, I think, last summer, and it was about how to be consistent and how to show up regularly. Notice it's not how to show up perfectly. It's not how to be the best at whatever. It's like, no, just consistency, right? I think this is my probably 150th live show out of the 400 episodes. I have some recorded shows as well. you know, I'm I still feel rough around the edges. I still got issues. I still feel kind of out of sorts. But the reason why I'm able to show up even as strongly as I am now, there's room for improvement. But if you go back to my live shows, they're all at Bring Your Worth TV. You can look at them. That evolution happens because of consistency. Practice, yes. Getting good mentorship, yes. But showing up regularly for y'all on Wednesdays, sometimes that's enough. And if you're really focused on quote unquote winning, which I don't like that term, but if you're focused on winning, the best way you can win is actually showing up consistently because most people do not have the discipline to show up consistently. Mainly, I would argue because their fears or their issues, their trauma holds them back. You have the opportunity to not be one of those people. How are you showing up consistently? Are there particular books that have helped you show up consistently? And is there a place that you're stuck that you think the World of Art might be able to help you with? Drop a line in the comments. Love to hear it. I love book recommendations. This is a fraction of the books that I have. You could barely see it, but I have so many books in my house. I love more recommendations. Drop them in the comments. Let me know if you have a favorite author that's helped you with consistency. I'm Damon Brown. This is Bring Your Worth TV. I'm an entrepreneurial coach, and I catch up with you live Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe on any of the platforms for free: Twitch, YouTube, pick a platform, any platform. But I'd love to hear your comments below. Next favorite book is The Dip by Seth Godin. Shout out to Seth Godin. You know I love you and I love your work. Seth Godin is a powerhouse when it comes to us branding ourselves and showing up in a certain way. His background is in marketing, but then it expanded really quickly. I want to say about a decade and a half ago to personal branding. Personal branding, for a lot of us creatives, makes us cringe. But personal branding is basically, let's see if I can paraphrase him correctly, a brand isn't a logo, but it's a promise. What promise are you making to the people that you serve? If you're not fulfilling that promise, then you do not have a consistent brand. End quote. The Dip is perhaps my favorite book of his, and that's a hard decision. I have five of his books on my shelves right behind me. I got more in the back. The Dip is fantastic. Number one, it is super short. I don't have it physically because I have the audiobook. The audiobook is less than an hour. Again, shorter than this program. Okay? Fantastic book. It talks about a simple scenario. When do you know when it's time to quit? And he gives this great analogy where there are dips and there are cul-de-sacs. Cul-de-sacs are those little roundabouts that are really popular here in the United States, particularly in suburban areas. I've lived by some cul-de-sacs where kids can like ride their bikes and then there's not as much traffic, et cetera, et cetera. But cul-de-sac, I think the term actually comes from the French. So I imagine there's a lot of cul-de-sacs over there. My Parisian folks, shout out to you. But if you know what a cul-de-sac is and you're from France, let me know. Dips are when you hit a certain limit and a certain friction point in the work that you're doing. You hit 100 episodes on uploading a podcast or doing something on one of the video platforms, and then suddenly your audience kind of flattens out. That could be a dip because you're about to go to the next level, but you've hit a dip and you need to level up in some form. That might be doing more research. That might be just waiting it out and being consistent. His book goes over those things. That's called the dip. That's a natural part of everything. Then there's a cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is another fancy word for a dead end. And you're on your proverbial bike, you go into the cul-de-sac, and you're just going in circles because cul-de-sac is basically a circle with one exit. And you're not going anywhere. That's not a dip, that's a cul-de-sac. You're going to be hanging out there forever. When do you know when to let something go? I know in my case, even with this show, when I hit probably around 100 episodes of Bring Your Worth TV, which was fairly soon, so I did a lot of episodes in the beginning. Probably the first year, I'd say, started in December 2020. I'd say by late 2021, I had 100 episodes. So it was pretty soon. And things kind of plateaued. and I was doing even more episodes a week. Like I said, I was really grinding it out. The pandemic was we're deep in the pandemic. Homeschooling with my kids. If you if you see the earlier episodes, you'll literally hear my kids in the background. So these tiny voices. Now they're a lot older. All these things, and my audiences kind of went like this, and it was like that for another year until I want to say early 2023, and then suddenly the audience went like this, and I went from having about 1,000 subscribers to within a few months in the tens of thousands. Now there's about 18,000 of y'all that have subscribed. That was my dip. It's not as a flex. It's like that's like I'm here in Las Vegas, so I think of that analogy. That's like being in the middle of a desert. That's part of the creative process. I don't care how popular your show is. I don't care how motivated you are. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care how much money a publisher or a TV studio or whatever is giving you. You're going to hit some type of dip. That's kind of the way it works. Whitney Johnson, who had a show called Disrupt Yourself. I think she has a new show now, but shout out to Whitney. She always talked about it being a slingshot and all that work that you're putting in. If you think about a slingshot, you kind of lean back, and then before you know it, it takes off. And all that work that you put into it goes forward. You have no difference between the dip and a cul-de-sac. A dip is like a slingshot where you're just kind of getting more momentum, maybe learning more, and then you're going to take off again. But you're going to hit that. You're going to hit that valley. Cul-de-sac, it's not going anywhere. And that really, in my opinion, comes down to knowing what metrics matter. Now, it could be the amount of subscribers. It could be the amount of people that view a particular episode, which is different than subscribers. It could be the length that people are watching episode. It could be the amount of comments. It could be just being consistent and regularly doing episodes. It could be the amount of coaching clients I get by doing that episode. Like that was just spitballing. Anything that you do, there could be concrete metrics that you can run with. But if you're looking at the wrong metrics, quote unquote, that's what I mean by wrong, then you could be quitting too early because it's not working for you. Or you might quit right when it's really doing well for your career or your business. Fantastic book. If you want to go deeper into it, really early episode. All about the early episodes today. This has had to be like episode 20 or something. You're watching and hanging out with me on episode 407. So it had to be like episode 7 or something. When should I quit something? Early episode, you see me with a little bit more hair, a little bit less gray. Really short episode talking about when to quit something. And it talks about the dip. Also talks about Jerry Seinfeld and him ending the Seinfeld show. You know, I have mixed feelings about Jerry Seinfeld. He's got a lot of issues, but he was right about this one. So it's worth checking out this episode and hearing me talk about that. When's the last time you struggled to quit something? Are you in the middle of the dip right now? Are you struggling to get things to the next level? It's worth reading the dip, but let me know in the comments if you happen to be in that situation. I don't have any situation like that at the moment, but there's a couple of projects that have been spinning around a little bit. You'll see them soon, but hopefully I'm not too deep into the dip with those. Again, my name is Damon Brown. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. I'm an entrepreneurial coach for side hustle solopreneurs, otherwise non-traditional entrepreneurs like yourself. You can watch Bring Your Worth TV live, Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time, as well as shorts and other extra episodes. Just subscribe. Subscribe on Twitch. Subscribe on Spotify, whatever works for you. The main channel is over at bringyourworth.tv. You can subscribe there. All the links are below. And another favorite short book, which I do physically have, is No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh. Rest in peace to Thich Nhat Hanh. He passed away about 2, maybe 3 years ago when we were deep into the pandemic. Shout out to him. Fantastic book, one of my favorite books. This book is great for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it talks about how you have to go through, sorry, you actually see the book, so that you actually have to go through hard things to go deeper into happiness, perhaps joy, and growth. This comes from, as you might be able to tell, from the lotus plant, which also, if you're into yoga, you're familiar probably with the lotus position, which is shaped like the yoga plant. Yoga plant is beautiful um, pastel blue. We would consider like Easter colors here in the States. These beautiful colors, these leaves that are poking out. But they usually come from like these dirty rivers, these mud patches. No mud, then you're not going to have the lotus plants. You can't have the beauty if you don't have the grit, the dirt, the frankly the ugly, the hard times with that. How do you do that? Well, his book is all about that. Wonderful passage here. Releasing your cows. One day the Buddha was sitting with some of his monks in the woods. They had just come back from a alms round and were ready to share a mindful lunch together. I think it's like a meditation. A farmer passed by, looking distraught. He asked the Buddha, "Monks, have you seen some cows going by here?" "What cows?" the Buddha responded. "Well," the man said, "I have 4 cows. I don't know why, but this morning they all ran away. I also have 2 acres of sesame. This year the insects ate the entire crop. I have lost everything, my harvest and my cows. I feel like killing myself." The Buddha said, "Dear friend, we have been sitting here almost an hour. We have not seen any cows pass by. Maybe you should go and look in the other direction." When the farmer was gone, the Buddha looked at his friends and smiled knowingly. "Dear friends, you are very lucky. You don't have any cows to lose." This is a simple passage. The book is chock with it. It's again 100, less than 120 pages. Killer book. From my understanding, the way I feel about that, and I read this book about once a year, I've been reading it for a while, is basically saying the things that we covet, go old school, get biblical on you. The things that the things that we covet, the things that we desire, the things that we want, the things in my interpretation, it's a lot of my coaching, a lot of the work that I do, the things that we think are going to fix our lives, they have their own set of complications. That old saying, if I only had $1 million. Okay. Well, if you have $1 million in, that means you have taxes, at least again here in the States. That means you have a social obligation, whether you accept it or not, to help those in your family, your chosen family, even with the world abroad. Help those who cannot help themselves or don't have those opportunities or luck that you had to get that $1 million. Suddenly you're spending time with people, and if it's certain people, you're not sure if they're hanging out with you because they like you or because you can pay for dinner tonight. Simple exercise. Those things that you cover, those things that you desire. I'm a passionate guy. I am an ambitious again. I've done 27 books. This is episode 407 of Forget Worth TV. I'm not the dude that's sitting around. I'm gonna go get it. Respect to my family and the people that raised me, that gave me that drive and that energy. That said, there has to be those reality checks to be like, actually, I have enough. Me being in my cute office studio, with Sir John Coltrane and Sir James Baldwin in the back. They weren't officially sirs, but you understand where I'm going. With my two distant mentors in the back and spending time with y'all. That's enough. And in that being enough, then life feels like plentiful. And that's where the joy, that's where the happiness, that's where the groundedness comes from. That's the mud. The mud is I don't have a fancy studio. The mud is my shirt is a little bit older. You can get this shirt, by the way, at bring or at DameBrown.net. Yeah, I got the gray hairs and a little bit of stubble. That imperfection and the acceptance of that, the joy within that, means that there's not the big staff of a TV studio. There's not someone saying, "Damon, you need to do this. I own this. This is mine. So this little studio, this hanging out with y'all, this is my show. So it doesn't have, the eight-figure budget that actually have colleagues that are rocking with those. But there's a level of freedom with that too. And in accepting and where you're at, who you are at this moment, there's joy within that. So you might want the four cows and the 2 acres of sesame, but there's a burden that comes with that. Just like with the gifts that you have in your life right now, the opportunities that you have in your life, there's a challenge with those too. So don't worry about going to the next level in that way that it's going to fix you. Get centered now. I can opine about this book all day. It's a short book. Again, I read you a 30-second, 90-second passage, and man, we do the rest of the show on this. It's this fantastic book. Denan Han actually passed away, like I said, a couple years ago. When he passed away, actually the episode is episode 190. So a half a season, half of the lifetime of this show ago, I talked about the best Denan Han quote you need to hear right now. It was an important episode, number one, because I loved Thich Han's work. He was also a Tibetan monk, helped mentor Martin Luther King's goals when it came to the civil rights movement. That's how OG this guy is. MLK and his people flew over to Tibet or to India and connected with learning about the Mahatma Gandhi's work. I think he had passed away already. So Mahatma Gandhi's work, as well as work of Thich Nhat Hanh. So this guy's OG. So when he passed, it meant a lot to me because I just got into his material right before he passed. And it was also recorded when we were knee deep in the pandemic. And so it was time to really think about what really matters and what doesn't matter. Definitely check out the episode. I think it's less than 10 minutes. And please check out the book. I have not listened to the audiobook, but this book has gotten worn out. And it's fantastic. It's been in my family for quite a few years now. Yeah. What's the one thing that you think would change your life right now? And what's the burden that you think would happen if we just play the exercise? If you actually got what you wanted? I guess a follow-up question would be, what in your life is amazing right now that someone else would kill for? Hmm. I think about 5, 10 different things off the top of my head. And I've talked about them ad nauseum on this show. Hey, entrepreneur coach Damon Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You subscribe for free. Go get these books. Go get these books. Enjoy them. If you want to learn more about some of that stuff I was talking about today, you want to go deeper, feel free to subscribe to my newsletter for free. And next episode to watch after this, Best in Non-Han Quotes. If you're watching the replay, then you'll go and see a link to it right over my big face right now. If not, you'll go and see the links right below. Until next time, remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.